Denny Laine, welcome to WLS.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
My pleasure. Denny, how did you first connect with Paul McCartney?
Well, the Moody Blues were good friends with the Beatles. We did their second British tour, and I'd already met them in my old band in Birmingham a couple of years before. So when we got to London, we all kind of hung out together. Paul was at what we'd call a townie. He lived in London, the city, and I would go out a lot with him to see people. We went to see Hendrix, Dylan, the Byrds, a lot of people together just because we were friends. And I did a show at the Savile Theatre, which was owned by Brian Epstein, and he put me on before Jimi Hendrix. And I know that Paul, John, and Peter Asher were in the audience. And shortly after that, he called me to join Wings because I was doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. So did Wings feel like it was going to be something special right from the start, or were there some growing pains with that group?
Oh no, I knew it would be. I mean, it's just that we're a new band, and Paul couldn't play Beatles music, and I couldn't really play Moody Blues music. It was, we wanted to do something completely original, and that was not so difficult, but we knew it would be a challenge, yeah. But we got there eventually.
So in a couple of weeks, it's going to be the 40th anniversary of Wings coming to Chicago to play the old Chicago Stadium for the 3 sold-out nights. What were you as a band feeling on that Wings Across America tour? Do you remember?
Oh, I mean, absolutely, the best feeling in the world because we'd finally got to that stage. And I always wanted to do more live work anyway. So that tour for me was the best period of my Wings period. So, we'd built up to the point where we were a good band. We'd done enough gigs to be able to say, we knew all the material inside out and we knew what we were doing. Like any band, it takes a while to get good. So that tour really summed it all up and put it all together. And, it was very, very... I actually listen to some of that stuff now, and it sounds really good now. It sounds like a tight band, That's the main thing for me.
So because this was Paul McCartney's first tour back to America since he was a Beatle, was he kind of nervous about the impression that his new band would make?
No, I don't think he'd be nervous. Paul's not a nervous kind of guy. But the thing is that obviously it was a big challenge, but we rehearsed the hell out of that thing. I mean, we practiced every day, to get it right. And so we were pretty confident by the time we got on tour that we knew what we were doing.
Now, that tour was filmed and, of course, became the concert film called Rock Show. What are your thoughts on that film? Did it capture the real essence of the tour and the band and the music and all that, do you think?
I think so. I could have done with a few more audience shots, but, it was a very good recording. The band played well. We didn't have to mess with it too much, and it was just us raw on stage, and I thought it came across really well.
So you were one of the original members of the Moody Blues. You sang lead on their first big hit, Go Now. How did working in the studio with the Moody Blues different from your experience of working with Paul McCartney?
Well, obviously, the Moody Blues was the first ever recordings that we did, and that I did. And it was when we did Go Now, we were in the studio. We'd never been in a studio like that before. And, a lot of the equipment we didn't have working. It was just a brand new studio that was being built. So, but by the time we got to the Wings era, and obviously we'd spent some time in the studios, so, and of course we had open-ended studio time so that we could mess around and do it in our own time. The early days, really, you had to get in and get out quick because it was expensive, and usually sessions were only lasted 3 hours or something like that. It was something to do with the unions. But the Beatles changed all that with Sgt. Pepper, where they started to have open-ended studios. I actually went to a Sgt. Pepper session, and I was kind of blown away by the fact that they could just take the time and do what they wanted to do.
So let's talk about the Band on the Run album for a minute. You and Wings are set to fly off to Lagos, Nigeria to record this new project. When you find out that half the band quit pretty much the night before the flight, what went through your mind?
Well, I was disappointed, obviously, because we'd rehearsed as a band to do that, some of those songs. We'd already rehearsed some of them and had tapes of the rehearsals in cassette form, actually, which were stolen by the time halfway the next week or something, but Paul got robbed in Lagos. But we were, we knew what we were doing. We knew the songs a little bit. and we were going to an EMI studio, so that felt pretty confident, you know. I mean, and we had Jeff Emmerich with us, who did a lot of the Beatles stuff and a lot of Wings recordings as an engineer. So we knew what we were going to do. We wanted to go somewhere where we liked the music and we liked African drum music. Ginger Baker had a studio just up the road from us, and you know, we went to different areas around the world to record because of that reason, so that we could be influenced by the local music. So we felt pretty good about it, but you know, we made the most of it. It was just Paul on drums and me on guitar, and we put the backing tracks down. It was fun. I mean, you got to remember, we grew up with the same music, Paul and I, so we knew we had the similar feels and ideas. We're all from the same era, and we worked pretty good together like that.
So we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Paul McCartney and Wings' historic Wings Over America concerts in Chicago with a special art show this weekend. And this art show is going to feature some hand-signed artwork from Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney, and, of course, you. Can you tell me a little bit about your artwork?
Yeah, well, I was never really, you know, I wouldn't consider myself an artist, but I used to do it for fun a few years ago. I was doing it quite a lot. But I had I got this musical called Arctic Song, and it's an ecological musical, which I'm about to put out now anyway, soon. I'm working with the SUNY University up in New York, and we're going to put a musical out. But the pictures that I've got are based on that musical. They're actually the storyboard of that musical, and which I wrote in the whole sort of story that I wrote. The story, the lyrics, and I put the songs, and I put the artwork in there to give an idea of, you know, for people to see what the hell the story's all about as well, visually. So they're using those pictures, some of those pictures. I have started to paint a little bit more because of this offer. I met these guys a few months ago when I went to Chicago to do another signing, and they asked me if I could actually paint. I said, well, I've got these pictures. They liked the pictures, and that's what happened. But I went to the Beatles Fest in New York. I was passing through on the way to a gig a couple of weeks ago, and I saw Ringo's, Paul's, Bob Dylan's, and John Lennon's art with this same group of people. So they represent all these people. So I figured if they represent them, it must be good enough to get involved. So I did, and I'm looking forward to it.
Denny, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you being on 94.7 WLS.
Enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Greg, and all the best.